It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hey friends, this is Andy. Do you know Engagio? They're leading the revolution in account-based sales and account-based marketing. Engagio enables companies like yours to orchestrate human connections at scale and build hyper-growth sales engines. Let's meet Joe Chernoff.
I'm Joe Chernoff, the VP of Marketing for Insight Squared. Our very first purchase when we shifted models was Engagio. Engagio very quickly became the centerpiece of our account-based marketing strategy, both the technology as well as the content they provide.
Engagio's platform lets you engage the right account at the right time so you can close more deals faster. So if you're interested in joining leaders like Insight Squared in the account-based everything revolution, then be sure to visit engagio.com/accelerate and download your copy of their new book, The Clear and Complete Guide to Account-Based Sales Development, and then come back and listen to the rest of this exciting episode of Accelerate. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I am excited to talk with my guest today. Joining me is George Brontén, founder and CEO of Membrain, a sales effectiveness platform based out of Sweden. George, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
That's
Thanks
good.
for having me on the show.
Well, my pleasure. So take a minute, introduce yourself, maybe tell us how you got your start in sales.
Yeah, in sales. Okay, starting back in the days.
Back in the days. Well, hey,
Sure.
I've met you. Back in the days was not that long ago.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so George Brontén is my name. Like you said, I'm currently running a startup called Membrain. I started in sales. Wow, that's a good question. Probably when I was like 8, repairing bicycles in my neighborhood for a fixed amount.
So you're a mechanic.
Yeah, exactly. But professionally, I guess my first job was selling loudspeakers because I love sound. I was like a bit of a hi-fi nerd a while. And then I moved into. Someone told me, "Wow, to be a true salesman, you need to sell books."
Sell books.
Sell books. That was the recommendation I got. And I said, well, that's weird, but yeah, if you say so. So I started selling the For Dummies series. I don't know if you guys recognize it. Yeah. So we took those to Sweden. I was working at the publishing house who sold these, translated and sold the books. And yeah, that was quite fun for a while. Then they wanted to make me into a manager for our small sales team, and I would make less money and have more responsibilities. So I quit, and I started my first company. And I think I was 24 at the time. And
so it wasn't the more responsibility that scared you; it was the less money.
Yeah, I guess both.
But then ironically, you started your own company where you had less money and more total responsibility.
Yeah, that was very ironic.
Yeah, ironic, yeah.
Yeah, I worked from my home, and I had several ideas. And the one I jumped on was creating a portal for dentists, which was a completely stupid idea. No research made, but dentists aren't the most tech-savvy people, so they didn't even know what internet was at the time. So that wasn't a really good venture money-wise. But the one thing led to another, and I started another company called Upstream, and we sold software. And that whole journey with the company and hiring and firing salespeople was really interesting for me. And I sort of came to a conclusion that I was good at selling, but I wasn't very good at helping other people sell. So I was making a lot of mistakes. I was specifically, I think I was assuming that people knew how to sell. I was buying into that whole concept of you're born a salesman, and it's something you have in your genes. And if you've sold something for someone else, I gathered you could be selling for me and my products. But I learned the hard way that wasn't true. So I I really sat down and reflected on this and said, these people that you've hired and fired can't be the problem. Really, you must be the problem here.
A good self-realization early on.
Yeah.
Especially at that young of age.
Yeah, so that wasn't too long ago, though.
Oh, so you're still young.
Took me a while to realize that, but that was, I guess it was back in 2008 or something that I came to that realization, and then I started Membrain, and we went live 2012 with the idea of how can we clone someone, how someone is selling, and put that into a system to structure the way we sell. So that was sort of the birth of Membrain, which is the company that I'm now running.
So you've written not that long ago that you believe there's a global crisis in sales effectiveness. So what's the crisis?
Yeah, I was a part of it. I think at the center, I guess, is that the world is changing, and we're all reading about this everywhere, especially in our profession, that buyers are changing. The internet has moved everything around. The buyers can self-educate. Sellers are not involved in the buying process until X% has already been completed and all that. And then, of course, you have the globalization going on. So all of a sudden, you're not just competing with the companies in your city or in your country even, but they're from everywhere now. So I think this whole situation is one aspect, globalization and information availability. But also, when I look at the mistakes I did, those were very, very fundamental mistakes and had really nothing to do about the outer world or the extrinsic parts. It was more really bad knowledge about the fundamentals of selling and the fundamentals of sales management. And when I wrote this article, I was looking and referring to the CSO Insights reports that they publish once a year.
Okay.
And the level of people that are reaching their targets has gone down year by year. So one would think with all the new technology and with all the new books that are coming out on selling and all the experts out there, we should all become more and more effective in how we sell, right? But that's not happening
But isn't one of the issues sort of controlling the variables so you can make sense out of that measurement? Because, I've read the same reports, and there's so many factors that go into that number about the percent that make quota. I just wonder how much we can really learn from that number in that report. In aggregate, I agree. It's a little bit alarming because the number is not very high to begin with, right? We're talking about less than 50% of sales reps apparently make quota, but we also don't know, how quota is established. Are the quotas reasonable to begin with? Are the expectations reasonable? Is it because as you have probably seen as well, and I certainly have seen over the years in sales companies I've worked with and companies that or worked for and companies I work with as a consultant, that quota setting is difficult and oftentimes driven by kind of irrational expectations.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and I think that's a part of the problem as well. How do we set quota? And a lot of times quota is just simply set based on past performance plus X% growth.
Plus X%, right.
So, I definitely agree. And yes, we should also be looking at these percentages that come out of the research with some skepticism, of course. But still, I think it is alarming that we're not, if they're asking the same group of people every year, which I assume they are, there should be movement in the right direction, not in the wrong direction. So I do think it's alarming, and we need to look at why is this happening. So why aren't we being more effective in the way we're doing things? And I see a lot of tendency in selling as a professional that we try to make shortcuts. So technology, which I'm in, is one of the troublemakers.
One of the bad guys, right?
Yeah, because it's often sold as some kind of shortcut. So if you just buy our technology, wow, you will just increase your win rates and you will boost your quota, you reach the quota every time, etc. So, but what I'm seeing is that people are making the same stupid mistakes that I did before I sat down and realized, wow, I need to really start thinking about this. Maybe I'm not doing it right.
Well, such a key word you used, thinking, right? Because I think one of the problems that we see with technology and the increasing reliance on technology in sales is this tendency to substitute the judgment of the technology for our own.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, we're still a person selling to a person. And while automation is incredibly valuable to a point, there is a point at which it comes down to a person dealing with a person. I mean, in business to business, we're talking about business to business, not e-commerce. So, it seems like we always sort of reach this, and to me, this is ever present in sales. It has nothing to do with the current generation or how change in the buyers. Is how do you get salespeople to act less robotically, to use one phrase, or less less scripted, and blend the technology with blend the science and the art of selling together to help the customer move through the buying process more quickly and make the right decision at the end of the day.
Exactly, and that's a key point you're bringing up there, the buying decision, because it's really about someone making a buying decision. And if you're in a more complex sales environment, as you refer to B2B, not transactional selling, and it will involve a lot of people. So it's not just, so we're also, if we're looking at these numbers that are published out there, we're also seeing a trend that more and more people are involved in the decisions. And I think that has a pretty natural explanation, because everything has become more sophisticated. So the finance department, they're more sophisticated. The production unit is more sophisticated, both technology-wise and process-wise. And this is creating, especially for technology that I'm in, some fear and some additional risk when you're introducing something new to a system. Mm-hmm. So if you're buying technology and let's take ERP systems, for instance, as an example, they might mess up the several business processes within a company. So there will be a lot of people interested in this decision being the right decision. So as a seller, not only do you need to engage with one person, and this is nothing new really, but it's just become more obvious, I think, that you really need to hold the buyer's hand, really educate them on how you can help, how you differentiate yourself. Wow, that's a difficult English word.
And what's the word in Swedish?
Differentiera. So that's
pretty similar, right?
Yeah. So I think helping the buyer buy, that's what a seller should be doing. And exactly. Sometimes when you look at selling, we're looking at the activities and the efficiency of things. So how many calls have you done? How many quotes have you sent out? How many demos have you done? But we're not looking at these activities in a structured way. Because if we're just sending out quotes and you haven't qualified properly, and you haven't positioned yourself correctly, and you haven't understood what the client really wants to do, then you're just making yourself a disservice, and probably the customer as well. So how you do things, when you do things, with whom you do things, all of this could feel like common practice to someone who has been in selling for many years, but it's not. It's very complicated stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, so thoughts and triggers. We've talked about this efficiency, effectiveness, the CSO studies, and so on. So, one research projection that's commonly talked about is, and I forget who it came from, one of the big research firms, saying that by the year 2020, that 20% of the business-to-business sales jobs will disappear.
Uh-huh.
All right, so we'll just put that out as a data point. Yep. And then you have CSO Insights saying that the percentage of reps making quota is declining.
Uh-huh.
So assuming that industry in general sort of continues on its current growth path, even of a couple % a year in, let's say, in developed economies, what it's saying is that in 4 years, when supposedly 20% of the sales reps have gone away, that the remaining sales reps, in order to achieve an even bigger number, right? Because it's not only 20%, it's 20% plus the growth every year, that the individual rep productivity will have skyrocketed.
Yeah, possibly.
But that doesn't make sense, right? Those numbers don't all, the circle doesn't, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't add
maybe.
up. How could we reduce our B2B sales force by a million reps people are talking about, and yet assuming that the people that are left, over half of them aren't making their quota. So it means the other 20% are basically going to become, well, I'd have to do the math, but off the top of my head, I was going to say 40% more productive at a minimum. And I don't see that happening. So I think we do have this conundrum of I think it's a conundrum issue of sales productivity.
Yeah.
More so than effectiveness. I mean, assuming one sort of effectiveness is a subset of productivity, is how do we address this issue of not only just increasing the number of reps that are making quota, but increasing the amount of revenue that each rep can produce within the given amount of time they have?
But I think what's happening is also we're seeing a lot of polarization of selling. So if you can transactionalize your sales efforts, if you don't need to have a person involved, because you can make that whole buying process so streamlined using technology and using information, then I think that those jobs will go away. I think that's just inevitable. So I think that's going to happen. We're going to see more selling become automated. But on the other hand, if what you're selling isn't possible, or if you don't want it to be commoditized, if you want to keep your margins and you want to provide value above a commodity product, you will need to design a whole product that is more than your core product, and you will need to offer that through professional salespeople that are led by professional sales managers, and just the whole level of professionalism in that chain will need to rise, and with it the productivity. But so yes, I do think we'll see a lot of salespeople lose their jobs.
Yeah, I'm not as convinced of that, right? So I mean, I think that for the reason I said before, I'm just not sure the math adds up, and certainly there is an increasing evolution of products that go through a life cycle or they become more commoditized. And given the way we can bring technology to bear to help facilitate the education of the customer, then it makes sense that there's always going to be, maybe a long tail of products, to use that term, that can be sold that way in a business to business that previously hadn't been able to be sold that way, business to business. They become well-known products, and in terms of their usage and how they're implemented and so on, that doesn't really necessarily require a sales rep. They can become commoditized. But then there's new products coming into the mix all the time, right? Through innovation and so on, that still require.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where I think it becomes interesting, because of the globalization and the increased competition, the requirements of those salespeople that are working in those environments will increase significantly, or will have to increase significantly, I think, because how you sell is becoming your last differentiator.
Your first differentiator.
Yeah, exactly. Your first even. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I believe. That's what I write about in my books. It's the first differentiator. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it does call into question, how our current sales models evolve. Even our newer sales models, like the SaaS sales model and so on. I mean, there's going to be some change. I'm not sure what that is, right? I mean, naturally, because we couldn't have projected 10 years ago we'd be at this spot where we are today. But I'm fascinated by what that might be.
But in my world, I think what I'm seeing out there is that there's so much to be done on the fundamentals of selling. So if we go back to my example, when I was selling an IT automation product to IT service companies, that product could help a company go from no profits to delivering 30% profits, which is an amazing accomplishment, of course, if you could use automation in that sense. But what I did when I hired these salespeople and I did all these mistakes, I didn't train them, I didn't provide them with a process, I didn't really make them understand how this buying decision will be made, which the stakeholders will be, which are key to convince about what and how. So they were just stepping on a landmine. So they were going to the owner, say, hey, do you want to go from 0% to 30% margins or profits? Like, yes, please. And then they would send a quote. And of course, their tech people, when the CEO went to ask them, hey, I'm considering this IT automation platform. What do you think? I mean, they'd go nuts. They would be very fearful of it because they thought they were going to lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that simple mistake by the salesperson not to engage with the tech people and tell them how much easier their lives would become by using this technology, they became a problem, so to speak, in the sales process. So, and I see that happening all the time with selling today. That sales, especially maybe in SaaS and these younger companies. They do demo and they quote. They do a demo and they quote, and they don't qualify correctly. They don't engage the right people. They don't understand the buyer fully. So there's so many mistakes being made and the fundamentals being missed that I don't think we really need something new. We just need to be more disciplined in doing the basic stuff, and I'm convinced that will increase by double digits the revenues for most companies.
Okay, so let's dig down in that then. So what are the basics? What are the fundamentals that form the base?
Yeah, so stakeholders is probably the key one, and especially now with inbound marketing and marketing automation, and what we see that you have a lot of buyers educating themselves, but who are these buyers? So what we're seeing is that they're usually someone who was tasked with finding someone out for someone else. So the CEO said, hey, we need to really ramp up our marketing. Go find us a system of this sort.
Mm-hmm.
And that person goes out and does all the research, and he gets captured in all these systems, and he gets these salespeople calling him or her. And they're calling this person, and they're speaking to this person for a whole sales cycle, and they're doing demos, and they're sending quotes, etc., without even engaging the people that would really make the decision. So really understanding how a buying process for each client would look like, which people are involved, what will need to happen for them to make a decision, and when should we do A, when should we do B, should we do C if we haven't done B and A, etc. So just having a staged and milestone-based sales process is a key thing from my perspective. And
in
then,
terms,
of course,
in terms of, because really the fundamental, as I see it, is really not identifying its stakeholders. It's the fundamental behavior is, or habit is, having the curiosity to know that you need to go find out who they are and talk to them.
Yeah, but if that's not in your, if we're assuming that you should know that, which I did in my previous company, I was assuming they would know that's common sense, right? That should any salesperson who has selling as their profession should have that curiosity and should know that they should be doing that, but they don't always. So right. I think that's why we need some kind of structure, and that's where I see the sales process being important. But of course, fundamentals is a big word. So yes, of course, it's even more fundamental to have the right attitude, of course, and the curiosity to actually do those things.
Well, I think that's, I mean, to me, it's not a trivial point, because your point is absolutely right in terms of having the structure, a well-defined sales process that is a playbook, is a roadmap for sales reps. But what has to precede that is I think what's overlooked increasingly these days. There is an assumption that we're hiring people that have these basic behavior traits, basic habits, basic disciplines. That so if we just manage the numbers, we sort of overlook the idea of the fact that these people have have some shortcomings that we can help with, that we can coach them through and insert them into this process, and this process is well defined, we'll certainly give them a structure to help them succeed. But we have to start what I consider the real fundamentals.
Yeah, of course, and that needs to be already when you're recruiting people, and in an understanding of what type of person do we need, and if we're involved in complex B2B selling, long sales cycles, multiple stakeholders, big numbers, you will need a very different type of person than the person who's going to sell a $50 a month SaaS subscription. Mm-hmm. So of course you need that. You need to have the right people in the right place, and what you just mentioned, I think, is really a hot button for me as well, and that's coaching. Because that's something that's really not done well today, I think.
And why?
And why? I think the main mistake we're doing is that we're promoting the best salesperson into a manager, and we're not providing that person with the right training, resources to become a good manager, or even knowing that that person could succeed in that role or want to succeed in that role for other reasons than money. So I think that's the number one mistake. And then even what we've seen is that you can train them in coaching, but if they don't have the right mentality, if they don't want to sell through people, they want to sell themselves, they're never going to become good managers or good coaches. So you're back to, I guess, to your fundamentals. Like, do we have the right people with the right motivation to do the specific job they're supposed to be doing? And I think in sales management today, there's a big glitch there. A lot of people that are in sales management roles that either shouldn't be there, don't want to be there, or haven't been given the resources and the training to be able to do a good job.
Well, you raised an interesting question, and I know it's not the exact question you asked, but it triggered the thought in my mind is okay, you said part of the problem with sales managers is we took our best people from sales and promoted them into management, and maybe it's not the right fit. So if that's the case, so you're looking to say, okay, I'm looking to promote somebody from within my sales team to become a frontline manager. If you don't hire the best ones, what are the criteria you use to select one of these people to, if not performance as part of it, to become, are we getting the middle people we're going to promote to sales manager? They're not that great in sales, but we think they might have an aptitude for management. I mean,
that's a great question.
Right? I mean, because it's there have to be some, I think it would be very difficult to promote somebody from within as a sales manager, like frontline sales manager, if they don't make quota.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. That's a very interesting reflection. I think more than anything, you need to have that will to want to help your team sell, and that can be your best sales. I'm not saying that it's always wrong to promote the best salesperson, but I'm seeing that it's often wrong. And maybe if you have someone a mid performer who knows, because I think it's critical for a sales manager, of course, to know the skills it takes to be a successful salesperson. I think that's important. I don't think they need to be the top performer. I think you could definitely take a mid performer who has the ambition, will, and traits to become a good manager and be a good manager.
Yeah, in my mind, they would have to have at least hit quota, though, because you're not going to get the respect from your teammates.
Depends on who sets the quota, right?
If you haven't, right? So I think that's. I think another way also that we sort of overlook when we talk about promoting salespeople from within to be frontline managers is we haven't given them the opportunity to find out whether it's something they would enjoy. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times, the high performers. Yeah, part of the reason they're high performers, they're kind of ego-driven. Nothing wrong with that, right? Ego-driven. And also ego-driven to think that, well, yeah, of course I want to be promoted into management. And they haven't really had the set of experiences to tell them, like, oh, well, yeah, that's not really for me, right? I'm much better off staying as a salesperson. This make me happier and so on. And so I've seen in some cases with companies I've worked with where we implement peer coaching. Mm-hmm. So that people that we think have knowledge to share with other reps, So I almost take on some of that frontline coaching responsibility from some of the managers in terms of tactic strategies and so on. And you get a chance to see them in action. They get a chance to have some level of responsibility for someone else and see if they have that desire to help other people, or just to, not to say they're completely self-centered, but to help another individual succeed in sales as opposed to going out and just continuing to help customers.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Love that idea.
Yeah, it's a way to approach it. That give them a taste of what they might get into, and let them have some experience and maybe self-select out.
Yeah, and I think it's also, like you say, it can also be a matter of timing. If you take someone who's become a top performer and he's still, I think that the ego thing, at least from my perspective, is something that when we get older, we get less egocentric. Mm-hmm. Maybe not all of us, but I think that's a tendency. And so maybe when you're matured into your role, you may be more interested in going into that position as a manager and help others. While if you're still early in your career, you want to really prove that you can sell and be a great performer. So yeah, it's timing and everything.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, I was going to make some wisecrack about politicians don't seem to have less ego as they get older, but that's I
don't want to get into politics.
I was being generic. Politicians.
Sweden, we're a neutral country. We don't get to.
You have politics as well, though.
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
not us. No one's immune from that. So
that is true.
Unless you guys went back to the monarchy.
Yeah. No, don't think that'll happen.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. So, though you still have one, right?
We do, yeah, but he's more of a PR guy now.
Yeah.
Or they. All of them are great PR people.
Yeah. So they go out and sell the country for their salespeople. They're selling the country.
Yeah. They should definitely go buy some of my technology.
Absolutely. Membrain at the Palace. Excellent. That would be a good case study.
It is.
Yeah. All right.
No, but the fundamentals, yeah, it's broad. Like we can be talking about this for hours. There's so much to be done and to be improved upon, and yeah, it's really a fascinating space.
Well, we'll have you back on. We'll talk about it again. So, and George, now come to the last segment of the show where I've got some standard questions I ask all my guests. And I think you may have been tipped to some of these questions before, so we expect great answers from you. So the first one is a hypothetical scenario that I posed to all my guests, and that you've just been hired as vice president of sales by a company whose sales have stalled out. It's time to hit the reset button, and CEO is anxious to get things turned around, back on track. So your first week on the job, what 2 things would you do that would have the biggest impact?
Wow, good question. So first, do nothing. I'd say just listen. Listen to the customers. Why are they not buying? Why are they buying? And then I would, as a second action, I guess I would just brainstorm with the team to get everyone's opinions and ideas on the table, to have what I need to make a decision.
Okay. Good answer. All right. So talk to the customers first, then work with the team, brainstorm, come up with ideas for what they could do going forward. Excellent. All right. So I got some rapid fire questions for you. You can give me one word answers if you wish, or elaborate. So the first one is, when you, George, are out selling Membrain, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
My smile.
that works. That works. Who's your sales role model?
That's such a difficult question, and I've been asked it before, and I wonder if I have one. Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. Okay, that's a good answer. Well, other people have used that too. Richard Branson. So, what's one book every salesperson should read?
Salesperson. So not a manager. Salesperson.
Well, it could be a manager, a salesperson. It doesn't even need to be a sales book. Just one book you think everybody should read.
I'll have to pitch the Dirty Little Secrets by Sharon Drew Morgan.
Ah, a good book. Okay.
Yeah, I think that has some nice insights in it that has always been relevant and maybe is even more so today.
All right, excellent. Okay, last question for you. What music is on your playlist these days?
Magic Mushrooms.
Magic Mushrooms, that's a group?
It is, yeah, it is. It's a techno style music played loud in your car before a meeting with a client, and you'll be pumped up.
Oh, excellent. Are they Swedish?
No, I have no clue where they're from, actually.
Magic Mushrooms. Okay, they're a new one for me. I'm going to check them out.
Yeah, yeah, please do.
Yeah, my own playlist from listening to these hundreds of answers I've gathered from people has expanded quite substantially.
Yeah, it's a super smart question. I will start asking people about that as well, to expand the playlist.
I learn lots of new things about people and about music. So, well, good. Well, George, thanks for joining me, and look forward to having you back on the show again, because we didn't get through but a fraction of what I wanted to talk to you about. So tell folks how they can connect with you and find out more about Membrain.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me. And so it's on LinkedIn is probably the place I spend most of my time. So just search for my name there. On Twitter, I'm George Brontén, so my first name, last name. And george@membrain.com if you want to email me.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks again. And remember, friends, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. An easy way to do that is to make this podcast, Accelerate, part of your daily routine, whether you listen on your commute, in the gym, or as part of your morning sales meeting. That way you won't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, George Brontén, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.